All right, welcome everyone. Glad you guys can make it. Sorry for the little rough beginning, but we're working out all the kinks. Welcome to the University of Texas at Dallas and the North Texas Secular Convention. Thank you all for coming. As I said before, we have a minor schedule mix-up. We're gonna have Elyse go first, and JT's gonna come present whenever he gets his laptop. A long story. So this is our first speaker kicking off our festivities this weekend. Our next speaker founded the Women Thinking Freely Foundation and is the mastermind behind the Hug Me, I'm Vaccinated campaign, the shirt I was wearing a little earlier if you got here early. She's just a wonderful person. Although she lives in the area, I met her in Columbus, Ohio, oddly enough, at a different event. But you know, we've rendezvoused here, and let's give Elyse Anders a hand.
So, first of all, I want to apologize to everybody, which is always good when the first talker's like, I'm so sorry. But, so, my talk is called God Hates Women, and earlier this week, he deleted my talk from my computer. So, I have actually been like rewriting it the last like 2 nights. And I don't have a PowerPoint presentation, so just like project your imagination onto the screen, which you might not want to actually do for this talk, but project pretty things onto the screen. Also, you know, it was kind of an homage to the Westboro Baptist Church, and I don't know if you guys heard, but they just lost 2 more members of the church, two women. They left in November, and they announced this week that they're gone, so yay. So, pregnancy. Pregnancy is the miracle of life. It is the miracle of birth, of creating God's children. It is a blessing bestowed upon women by an all-knowing, all-loving, intelligent creator. A blessing that when you look at it, you can realize that the only reason it exists is because God hates women. Now, maybe you don't want children, maybe you can't have children, maybe you're a man, and that doesn't mean that God doesn't hate you. If you're a man, he probably doesn't hate you as much, but if you're a woman, he still does hate you. He probably hates you a little bit more because you're not obeying him by making these children. And maybe you can't have them because you upset him. Because God is a passive-aggressive asshole. Now we know it's a blessing because Republicans like to tell us that every pregnancy is a blessing and every child is precious and every woman is a vessel for whatever. But the thing is, like, if you look at the Bible, like, it's right there in the beginning, so it's not even like you have to have a long attention span to figure out that it's not a blessing, because it was given to women as a curse for eating a shitty piece of fruit. And he was mad, so he was like, sorry, you're gonna suffer through childbirth and whatever else. Divorce? I'm pretty sure that he didn't bestow divorce upon Eve, but I'm not a biblical scholar, so. So the next time somebody gives you some kind of bullshit line about pregnancy being a gift from God, you can explain to them that no, God cursed women with pregnancy, and second off, sorry, I'm off. And second of all, I'm going to explain what this blessing entails. Because, like, when I think of blessings, and I think of miracles, I think of things like, you know, God showing up at a party and being like, oh, you're out of wine? Here's some more fucking wine, you know? And you guys can, like, party for another week. Or like being like, oh, you can't see? That's terrible. Here's some new eyes. Oh, your skin's falling off? Here's some new skin. But he doesn't do that to women. He just makes us suffer for 9 months and then gives us children after that. At this point, I'm going to, serious warning, if you are queasy, if you don't like talk about things like poop and blood, just go. If you don't know where babies come from and like you don't want a spoiler, spoiler alert, okay, you guys. But really, honestly though, if you do have any emotional triggers revolving reproduction, pregnancy, if you don't want to hear people honestly just griping about having healthy and positive outcome pregnancies, if that's not something you can handle, go have a coffee or a beer coffee, whatever, because it's not, just, I get it, so just go on. So, back to pregnancy. So you start out pregnant, and everybody's happy for you. And all anybody wants to talk about to you is how you are happy. You must be happy. You're pregnant. You're not even you anymore. You're just like this person who used to be a person who maybe once had a master's degree, but now you're pregnant. And they want to talk to you about being pregnant and how great that is and how great you feel, right? And the thing is, like, you may not be happy. It may even be something that you were happy about, kind of, like it was a pregnancy you planned for years with your partner, or years, and you should be excited, but all of a sudden, like, you feel sick, you feel awful, and it's occurring to you that in a few months, you're going to be responsible for a human being that you've never met, and you're responsible for all of their needs. And it can leave you feeling a little inadequate and overwhelmed and terrified. And if you say that out loud, people treat you like you are a terrible person or like you're kidding. And you're probably not. And going through those things is a totally normal thing. Not everybody is happy about being pregnant. Some people have these positive pregnancy tests and then all of a sudden realize that having a baby might be the biggest mistake they've ever made in their life. And everyone will be like, but no, it's not. And we know you're going to be a great parent, but you can't know somebody's going to be a great parent until they're done parenting. So it's entirely possible that this child you are going to have is the biggest mistake you've ever made. Probably not. You're probably going to do a decent job, but I mean, somebody out there is the worst parent on earth, and at some point they made the decision that they were going to raise children and probably thought they did a decent job somewhere. So yeah, I mean, you're not, it's overwhelming, and it's a lot, but you can't say that to people. And that's hard. And I don't know why God would put you in that position if He's blessing you. And then He gives you morning sickness. And morning sickness is not morning sickness. And we talk about it like it's this beautiful rite of passage that every pregnant woman gets to go through. We wake up in the morning and we feel a little queasy, but it's okay because we love our babies, and we're just throwing up for a few minutes, and then you get up and you go to work. But it's not like that. It is get up and vomit, and then vomit again, and then have some water and vomit, and then maybe try to eat something and vomit. And it lasts from 6 to 9 months. It's like being hungover and having the flu. Or not 6 to 9 months, 6 weeks to 9 months. Sorry. And people think it's like kind of this funny thing that that pregnant women have, and it's like, oh, but it's morning sickness, and it's funny, and you're gonna throw up, so I'm gonna help you throw up. Oh, does the smell of this make you throw up? It does? Let me put it in your face. Ha ha, we're all laughing along because we're happy that you're pregnant. Because you're assholes to pregnant women, all of you. And then there's the morning sickness fetishists. They get so excited, not because they think it's funny, but they think it's wonderful that you have morning sickness, because they think that if you have horrible, horrible, horrible morning sickness, it means that you are going to have the greatest pregnancy on earth. And there is a correlation between terrible barfing and positive pregnancy outcomes, but it is not a diagnosis of having a healthy pregnancy. So they sit there and tell you that it's really great. You're like, oh my god, I haven't kept anything down but saltines in 7 weeks, and I hate my life, and this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And they're like, no, it's great. You're gonna have a healthy baby. You should be so happy. And that's awful. Like, that's the worst thing you can say to somebody. And then that person can still lose the pregnancy. So then you are a huge asshole. So don't do that. And morning sickness, for those of you who don't know, is 24 hours. It is 24 hours a day. Thanks, God. And when you're not barfing, you are falling asleep. Through pretty much the entire first trimester, you're exhausted. Can't stay awake at all. You can't drink coffee because you're pregnant. And it's on the list of... So you basically, when you're pregnant, you can have water, saltines, and like an occasional hamburger. Coffee is not on that list. You cannot have caffeine, and you are falling asleep. And when you are tired, you are not like, oh, I'm so sleepy. You are like, hit a wall. I am done. I am falling asleep right here, talking to you right now. And there's nothing you can do. Nothing you can do to fight that. But then you have your second trimester, where you have all the energy on earth and you will never, ever, ever sleep because you can't, because there's so much to do, and you are ready to get it done, and you feel great, and you feel healthy, and you're over being sick, and you don't need sleep because you're going to paint, and you're going to build a crib, and you're going to get everything done because you only have 5 months until this person is moving into your house, and it's a very, very needy person, and you have a lot to do. And then the third trimester comes, and you have even less time, and you have more stuff to do. But you're tired because you're uncomfortable and you can't sleep. Because every time you try to sleep, your baby wakes you up. Because God made babies so they work like this. You walk around and it rocks them to sleep. So all day, you're going through your day and you're walking and the baby's like, oh, thanks for walking around, Mom. I'm gonna take a nap. And then as soon as you fall asleep, they're like, what the hell is going on? It is time to have a party. And they start moving around and kicking you and doing whatever they can do to keep you awake with them so that you'll put them back to sleep. Babies are the worst. And then once they can kick, there are 2 things they like to kick. The first, do you guys know what a cervix is? Those of you who don't know, it's the thing that, okay, when you're trying to get a bag of weed onto an airplane, it's the thing that keeps it from going up in your uterus. So it's right there by the baby's feet. Sometimes by their hands, depending, whatever. But they're just moving around, and then they kick you in your cervix. And getting kicked in the cervix is kind of like having a lightning bolt go down your vagina. And it shoots down into your legs, down into your feet. And it's quick. I mean, if you guys have like zapped yourself, right? Zapping your vagina with a baby's foot. Because God would put that there by the baby's feet. It's hard to stand up because you just got electrocuted in your vagina. So you're grabbing things and just hoping you don't fall down. It is terrible. The other thing they like to kick, and I think everybody knows this, but I don't think anybody talks about it enough, is that they like to kick bladders. And like, you don't know when the first time your baby is going to kick your bladder is, and it's a big deal. Like, the cervix kick is awful, and you'll probably fall down, and that's embarrassing. But like, you get up, and then anybody who didn't see it forgot. But the bladder, and when they kick it, you pee. And if you didn't plan for this, you peed yourself. There is pee running down your leg. And yeah, that's awful. So if you are pregnant or plan on getting pregnant, just go to the store, get those ladies' panty liners, just wear them. You will thank me when it happens. And then there's the swelling. We all know that everything swells when you're pregnant. Your hands swell, your feet swell, your face swells, your butt swells, your tummy swells, your boob swells, your junk swells. It fills with blood. And what's normally a part of your body that you don't think about much because you don't feel it, because it's just, you know, kind of tucked away and where it needs to be. It grows like the size of maybe Twinkies. And you can feel it, and it's in the way, and it hurts because like you basically have a brand new pair of really achy testicles. And if you sit down on them. If you're walking around, they're there. If you lie down, you can take the pressure off. But what happens then is that blood flow goes back into those parts. And then when you stand up, the baby comes and sits down on top of them and traps that blood back down there, so they just get bigger. You guys liking this talk? But your feet also swell, and this is not nearly as awful, depending on how you feel about your shoes. Because what happens is your body releases this hormone called relaxin, and it causes everything in your body to relax and grow and spread so that you can open up and push a baby out. And hands spread out, your hips spread out, your feet spread out, and they swell. And by the end of your pregnancy, you can't really fit into your shoes. After you have the baby, the swelling goes down, but your feet are still spread out, and you will never ever wear your favorite pair of shoes again, which is probably worse than having swollen testicles, because those go away. And then the pooping. You guys know about the pooping? You guys know about the pooping, right? Not the babies. Not the babies. When you're pushing to push a baby out, God made it so that you would do this. He gave us hospitals so that you can lay on a bed and like 5 people that you kind of maybe know are standing there watching your junk, and as you are trying to push a baby out, you push out a poop. And nobody will tell you that you did. Everybody will warn you, it could happen. It could happen, but nobody will admit to you that it did happen. Because they don't want you to be embarrassed, because, you know, obviously the worst thing that could happen when you have a group of people that you barely know staring at your bloody gaping vagina is that you might have pushed out a poop. But like my husband, when I had my first child, he is like, no, you didn't. You did great. You pushed and you pushed and no, you didn't. When you thought you did, you didn't. You didn't. And he was so proud of me and like really made a big deal about the fact that I didn't poop. And the whole thing was he was lying to me. And a year and a half later, he got drunk and then he starts laughing at me because I pooped. Because God also made husbands. And the bloody gaping vagina. Remember I mentioned that? Poop? So, when you're about to give birth, your cervix, the thing that keeps your wheat in, it also keeps your baby from falling out. It also does that, so it has two uses. But in order to get the baby out, it has to open up. And typically now, and had God not deleted everything off of my laptop, you would have an image of this. Typically, you know, it's closed. It's like this. It's little. Because it's keeping things in and out. But then it opens to 10 centimeters. Which is about 4 inches. But the difference between where it is, like right now, assuming none of you guys are like in labor, and not the guys, it's closed. And it's like an opening. Let's just say it's like the size of Earth. When the baby comes, it is the size of Jupiter. To scale, it goes from Earth to Jupiter. I wrote a poem. It goes, if girls go to Earth before they give birth, then Jupiter blows up her vagina. The end. Like I told you, I wrote this like in 2 days, right? I mentioned that. So I didn't say it was going to be a good poem. But then, when you think about 4 inches. 4 inches is, what, this much? Think about the size of a baby's head. This much. And shoulders, bigger than the head. 4 inches, not a lot of space. So your body has a little bit of stretch, I guess you could say. It's usually not enough. And you guys know what a rectum is, right? You know where it is? Like, here's your vagina, here's your rectum, and like there's like a divider in between them. And sometimes, you know, if you have a baby with a head bigger than 4 inches, that has to tear open, and sometimes it just becomes one big hole. It's just one big, bloody, poopy anus tear. You guys hate me. Yeah, and there is something you can do to prevent the tearing, and it is that the doctor comes in and takes a pair of scissors and just cuts that, which doesn't feel any better. It's not really less bleeding. It's not really... What it is that it's easier to clean up later. so they can stitch it back together so that it's not a permanent single hole, so that you're not actually later on pooping through your vagina, which also does happen to some people, but not usually. And because of that, after you give birth, you cannot use toilet paper. God gave us toilet paper because he loves us. And then he takes it away when we give him the thing that he wants us to give him, according to Republicans. You can have toilet paper as long as you don't have babies. What you get is you get like this squeeze bottle. I mean, it's not like this big, but you get a water bottle and you fill it up with water and then you can like rinse. It doesn't matter though, because you're bleeding like buckets of blood for weeks. For weeks. Like just everywhere. So it's not even like toilet paper would matter, but it would just be a nice thing to be allowed to use without it burning like sandpaper. And then I'll just take you back to the beginning, where we're not, bleeding and pooping. In the beginning, you have this thing where there's saliva everywhere. Like your mouth is just, take a swig of water, just like open your mouth and like let it like fall out. That's kind of what it's like. And you don't do that because you look ridiculous when you do that. And you like having dry clothes. And because it's not something adults do, because we know how to swallow. But you have so much, you can't. Because your body is like, oh, we're spitting for two now. And the best way I can describe it is, it's like hormonally mandated waterboarding. And it is banned by the Geneva Conventions. Because you're having warm, foamy saliva pouring into your belly. And it coincides with morning sickness. So women who are already nauseous tend to have this worse. And my only explanation for that is that Dick Cheney might be God. And then there's the nipples. So we all know that women have this beautiful glow about them, where they have beautiful lustrous hair that grows, it's thick and it's long and it's healthy, and it doesn't just grow on their heads. It grows everywhere, including your nipples, and you can have like forests of nipples. Like everywhere. And like, a lot of women complain like, oh, I have to shave more, whatever, but like you can't really just like shave your nipples. And the nipple hair, not necessarily gonna go away. That can be permanent too. So, God loves us. There are things you can do to avoid getting pregnant. Some of these things are not having sex. The other thing you can do, which is more recommended, is just use birth control. You guys know about that? And I wrote this article about this like a few years back, and people were insisting that even talking about these things is going to make women never, ever, ever have babies. Women cannot know that these things happen, because then the human population would die out. And one, would that be so bad? And two, No, not gonna happen. And 3, I think we need to know. I think that women need to be informed about these things. And, you know, as awful as it is, at some point we have to realize that it's probably worth it, because many women, like, go through it once and then do it again, and sometimes again, and some women do it like 12 to 20 times. So it's awful, but it's not as like horribly scary as you think it might be, but it's still a really shitty thing for a God to do to a creature that he created in his image because he loves us. Any questions? Because this went faster than I thought. So we can have an extended Q&A about bloody vaginas? Yes?
Yes, you're talking about the baby, stomping on the cervix, and just made me kind of wonder, what if the woman and the baby daddy were both Irish? And, you got the next Michael Flatley gestating. I just wonder how bad that could be.
I assume that dance skills are not developed actually in utero. It could happen, but yeah. I don't want to think about that. I mean, imagine if you had like Irish step dancing twins. Anybody else? Yes.
How many children do you have?
I have 2. I've been pregnant 4 times. I've had 2 miscarriages, and I have two kids now. Greta.
So, I'm not sure how to pose this as a question. So you said that when you wrote about this, people responded by saying you shouldn't say that, you shouldn't talk about that. I guess my question is, really?
Really?
People really are saying that we should keep information about women's bodies secret from women because they might make different decisions.
Because we might make different decisions that would result in us not giving them the children that we're supposed to give them. Yes. It's not a very feminist perspective on the matter.
Oh, really?
And I am not like hundreds of comments, emails, horrible messages sent to me on Facebook. How dare you talk about bloody gaping vaginas? Nobody knew that happened. Like, apparently they knew where the baby came out, but maybe just like silly putties, and then comes out like toothpaste, and then was like popped back into baby form after 20 hours of pushing. Yes.
Have your kids heard this talk yet?
Well, I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, so no, and actually they were C-sections, so most of it doesn't even apply. The second one was a planned C-section.
I'm the 4th of 5 kids who are all delivered without anesthetic at home with a midwife. I in particular had to be rushed to the hospital right after because I didn't start breathing. Did you know that some people do that even 20 years ago?
That some people don't breathe? Or
deliver babies at home with a midwife without anesthetic.
Yeah, actually Ricky Lake made a whole documentary about how it's a big thing. Women still do it. In fact, there are women who believe. Actually, in Ricky Lake's documentary, actually, she talks about how it is physically impossible. They actually had a doctor talk about how it's physically impossible to give birth while lying on your back. It's not. It's not because it happens. It's happening right now. There are babies coming out. They do it. They do it now. There's a woman sitting in a bathtub somewhere in Dallas, I bet, giving birth to a baby right now.
Given how long labor lasts, that's a reasonable bet.
Yeah, and I mean, more power to them, but for me, I just assume that's why God also felt bad at some point and invented the epidural. Because I thought thought when I had my son, my first baby, I thought that I would, you know, do it without drugs because I'm a badass. And then my water broke, and within 5 minutes, I was so angry at the anesthesiologist for having the balls to have another patient that day because I wanted the drugs 3 hours ago. I was no hero that day. And I'm okay with that, because there's no reason I had to be, because there was an anesthesiologist on call to save me. I didn't believe in God that day.
A lot of this information is really just not public knowledge. It's typically only when we dig through it and know about it. Can you speculate as to why they don't talk about it? If they're really so enamored with their children that think it's worth it, or if they're like scared and repressing it, or if it's like some misery loves company conspiracy.
You know, I think that there is a lot of taboo around talking about things that are unpleasant aspects of motherhood. We are supposed to be these loving, compassionate caregivers, and our number one thing that we're supposed to do, our number one job, is to be a mom and to love our children. And, you know, a baby needs a mom, and moms have to stay home because they're the better caretakers. And it's hard for women to talk about things that are unpleasant. I mean, how long did things like postpartum depression not get discussed? Because it's not okay to have a baby that you don't love. When my daughter was born, when my son was born, I bonded with him immediately. I mean, it was like that magic thing that everybody expects to happen, where you see his face, you fall in love, and you are instantly bonded, and that baby is the most important thing that has ever happened to you. When my daughter was born, I didn't love her for months. And I'm not kidding. I liked her. I mean, I took care of her. I fed her. I knew it would eventually happen, but I didn't fall in love with her. I did eventually. I adore her to no end now, and I'm not just saying that because I have to. I mean, she's a great kid. But it took me a long time, and women don't talk about that because it's supposed to. It's supposed to be instant, and it's supposed to be instinct, and it's supposed to be something that we're born with, and to not do that somehow makes us not women, or not good mothers, or bad people, sociopaths, or not fit to raise children. And I think that's a lot of why we don't talk about the unpleasant things that happen during pregnancy. We don't talk about the unpleasant things that happen in motherhood either.
I'm also confused when you're talking about epidurals. Why some women choose not to do that? Do you have the insight into that? I mean, it seems to me that that's a perfect solution to much of the problem.
Not everybody wants the pain killed. I mean, because there's an experience to giving birth to your child. Did you have an answer?
Actually, I do. My sister had one, and she had like a lot of allergic reactions.
Or there's that. There's the.
There's a lot of because you're introducing the dark in your body, there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong, and that's why a lot of women choose not to do that, is because a lot of things can go wrong, and especially with my sister, she had an allergic reaction. She just had a lot of. It was more difficult than it had to be because of the epidural.
I don't know if you guys heard that. Her sister had an epidural and she had an allergic reaction to it. You know, it is a drug. It's being injected into your spinal column. It's a drug you probably never had before. It may not work. And you can't feel from here down. There's also a lot of mythology about what it can, it's going to make breastfeeding harder, it's going to make pushing harder, it's going to do this, it's going to do that. But in the end, it's a woman. I mean, I can't speak for every woman who chooses not to have an epidural, because that is not a decision I would make. But it's her choice to have that experience. I think it's an experience not worth having, but that's just me. And if I could, I would just show up drunk. But they hate when you do that. They get really mad when you show up at labor and delivery like wasted. And they like, a lot of times they're just like, that baby can't go home with you until you sober up, lady. So. And yeah, and not everybody hates pain as much as I do, and some people. So actually, there's a lot of women that don't remember how bad the pain is, and that's actually it's not even women. People can't recall pain. Like if you try to recall the worst pain of your life, like you can kind of imagine all the experiences around it, but you can't recreate that feeling. And there's so much going on when you give birth to a baby. Like now you have a baby, so that gets diminished in your memory. And women like to tell stories about how like it was nothing. I mean, you pushed and the baby comes out and sure it hurt, but it's something you can't handle, and sometimes it is. But I mean, we don't want to be wimps.
You seem to have a pretty good grandmother.
It's because I'm not a good mom. I'm okay with that. Nobody in this room had an illusion that I'm a good parent, right? I think somebody's at home taking care of my kids right now. Yes?
In my own experience, I think I'm that kind of person that I have never forgotten the pain of having a child, and that's why I only have one. So I think that's a very good contraceptive, number one.
It's not, because I hated being pregnant, and then I did it 2 more times.
Not this person.
Because you should give the talk. You're far smarter than I am.
The other problem with women, the person or people that women hate the most are other women. And I think that's why these subjects are not discussed, and it all becomes a wonderful thing. I'm for one, a person that believes that the choices are 0, 1, or more than 1. And every time that I say that a woman has the choice to decide whether to have 0 children, oh, I get these hateful emails, how bad I am, why am I here? Well, I look at women as not a reproductive order, that are here to make sure that the species survives.
Amen. Women, not here just to make more people for men. Did I just hear a bell? Am I getting kicked off the stage? No?
No, I got that first.
Oh. Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you don't want to have kids, that's cool. Like, dudes everywhere for like ever have been making that decision not to give birth, so feel free.
I've talked to someone who, when they were younger, decided not to have children, and their male doctors would not allow them to be sterilized. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think it's. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to speak as a doctor because I'm not. But I would imagine that there's probably ethical considerations going into a situation when you have a 20-year-old who's like, no, I don't want kids. Like, there's, and I don't want to be like, you might change your mind. But, I mean, you might, and to make that permanent change, if I were a doctor, I don't know if I'd be okay with making that decision. When there's very, very good long-term contraception out there that gives you that option. And that's not to diminish the choice not to have kids, but just, on the chance that maybe you do. And I'm pretty sure that the long-term contraception probably has fewer complications than actual sterilization. I'm not sure, but I mean, there's probably things being considered there, other than like, no, sweetie, you're gonna have babies and you're gonna do it on my watch because I am your doctor and there is going to be at least 10 fetuses in you by the time I'm done. Yes.
Well, going along with your talk and the ladies' comments, we could excuse like teen pregnancy or pregnancy about the survival of the species? Is it societal pressure that's how to be a complete woman?
I don't think there's one reason that anyone decides to have children, or one reason that anyone decides not to have children. I mean, unless it is like, I don't like children. Maybe it is one reason. But, I mean, for me, it was a little bit of that's what you do. I did, you know, I had considered going back to school, actually going to med school, and then I wasn't going to have kids, and then I decided I was going to have kids because I wanted a family. Why I would choose to go through it again and have another one, I don't know, because I'm not a smart woman. But you know, it was something that I wanted. I mean, it wasn't like, I've never in my life felt like I was concerned about what if we run out of people and there's nobody to keep throwing garbage on the side of the expressway? Or like, what if we end up with too much water at the end of the earth and there aren't enough people to waste it all? It was just that I wanted, it was, I mean, it's just an emotional, I wanted it.
Well, aren't the theists like going crazy with that shit, and maybe the atheists need to keep up?
Well, atheism is not genetic. There's no gene. I mean, everybody in here was raised atheist?
Actually, I would argue that we're all born atheists.
But I mean, you know, we get lots of atheists that come from Christian families, maybe even more than come from atheist families. So I wouldn't even say maybe. I'd say that most atheists probably come from religious backgrounds, because most people do.
So the U.S. has a freakishly high rate of maternal death during childbirth for a developed nation, and it's been suggested that part of that is because there's no public knowledge about the true risks of pregnancy. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that, or if you anything to say about it, and sort of how it relates back to there's something trying to minimize it as just a 9-month inconvenience.
Yeah, it's not an inconvenience, but I am in no way qualified to discuss maternal death rates. As much as I wish I was, because I would like to stand up here and like rant about something that's going to save women's lives instead of just being like, pregnancy sucks, yo. But, sorry. Yeah.
I was just sitting here thinking about how much more stressful it would be if you had been raped and didn't really want to have the kid, but religious forces were saying you have to have it.
There is nothing that made me more pro-choice than being pregnant. And actually, like, I would say that I was pro-choice before I had my son, and then like after I had my son, I would say that that was when I moved to being what people say doesn't exist, which is pro-abortion. Because I think that if we had more abortions, it wouldn't be a bad thing. It would mean that more people who want them are having them. And I think that everybody who wants one, everybody who is pregnant who doesn't want a baby, should be considering that. I mean, maybe you don't want one, but if you want one, you should have one. Everybody who wants one should have one. And I am pro-abortion. I am pro people having them, and I am pro more women having them. If we have fewer abortions, I want it to be because we have better contraception and more women and men using contraception.